what's going on YouTube? So today is another Saturday, so I'm going to review an album that I bring out with me to DJ on Saturday, and this album is an album I really enjoy playing for the kids on Saturdays. It's Talking Heads, Remain in the Light, released in 1980 on Sire Records. Talking Heads formed in 1974, and they originally called themselves the Artistics. And then in 1975, they changed it to Talking Heads, and one of the first shows they ever played as the Talking Heads was at a CBGB concert opening up for the Ramones. Talking Heads is pretty much a groundbreaking album. It's got all these innovative recording techniques and songwriting ideas. It was produced by Brian Eno. Before this CD came out, there was some inter-band tension because the band members felt like they were just a backing band for David Byrne. David Byrne being the lead singer. There was a married couple in this band, Tina Wayworth and Chris France, and they decided to go on a prolonged vacation just to, you know, I guess contemplate the future of the band, if they wanted to separate, because they had their own bands that were formed around this album, around when this album was made, called Tom Tom Club, and Tom Tom Club have, you know, some similar characteristics to this band. They're a little more lighthearted, but they still incorporate, like, you know, elements of, like, you know, pop and reggae and Afro Beat and stuff like that. They have cool songs like Genius of Love and Under the Boardwalk, just Tom Tom. I think I have most of their albums. I only have a small stack of Talking Heads albums, coincidentally, but they're all pretty good. There's not one I don't really like. Some of them are pretty, I don't know. But this one's really good. But yeah, so anyway, they went on their prolonged vacation. They went around to the Bahamas, and I think they went around Africa, and they got into some weird business. Like, they were taking part in Haitian voodoo ceremonies and all these, like, African religious ceremonies, and they were learning a lot about African, like, tribal rhythms and all the different percussions the African people were using. And they got really into that, so I think they rented or purchased an apartment in the Bahamas and just played around with that for a while. Then David Byrne, the singer, went down to go visit them because he didn't want the band to break up, and Tina and Chris weren't sure if they wanted to either. So they just decided to, you know, have a talk. They decided to, you know, sacrifice the egos. There'd be no more, like, you know, anyone in the band being a focal point. They just wanted, like, the songs to stand for themselves, I guess, and they just recorded all these instrumentals and just jammed a lot without actually putting any vocals in or, like, singing, I guess. Brian Eno went down to see what's going on, and he really liked the direction the band was going in. He introduced, I think it was him that introduced, like, Fela Kuti, this Afro Beat band leader, to the band too, and got the band really into, like, polyrhythms, African beats, and different sounds like that. And Brian Eno also was the one who, I think, came up with the idea to record this album instrument by instrument. Like, they just take, like, a simple guitar riff and like a drum beat and just sample it and loop it, just make these really long loops of beats and, like, bass loops, and just kind of superimpose them and merge them into this tightly meshed kind of sound. It was, like, recorded on a very minimal way, but it was very painstaking to get the right, you know, tape speed and the right riff to loop and stuff, and, like, place it just the right way. David Byrne also had a very severe case of writer's block when he was making this album, probably because it was such a, you know, innovative way to make music, but the music sounded so different that he couldn't really figure out how to put words to it, so he went to Africa too. And I guess there he had discovered that when African people don't remember a word for something, they just improvise it and just make up a new word, and that inspired him just to kind of, like, vocalize over the music and just do this kind of scatting thing where you just make mumbly sounds and gurgles or whatever it was. It's like just to match the music, just to match the rhythm and stuff, and just make words out of it later. Like he said, he'd re-listen to his, like, you know, his gibberish until it became less and less nonsensical, and then just wrote words that would kind of fit the, you know, rhythm patterns. And he came up with all these kind of abstract lyrics about, like, spirituality and culture and, like, you know, consumerism and, you know, capitalism and stuff like that. Like, the lyrics here are pretty all about, like, modern living back in the 1980s and stuff. Pretty cool album. Very, very intelligent. Talking Heads do a very good job of mixing together, like, you know, pop rock with new wave, post-punk with, like, reggae and world music, and there's funk in here. These guys are mostly regarded as, like, a post-punk or an art rock band. It's also one of the first album jackets to incorporate computer effects on here. Like back in the 1980s, computers were huge. They were the size of like apartments, and they took up several rooms and were very, very slow. So computer graphics like this, and this is also a computer graphic. It took forever to make. As well as the sleeve is one of the first like computer generated like fonts ever applied to like an album. What else? Oh yeah, they actually they had one engineer, and they got in an argument with in the studio, and he quit. So they got in Bob Marley's engineer, a guy who's been engineering songs for Bob Marley since he was 17, named Stanley. But yeah, this was a very, like, back then it was a very novel idea to record everything, all the instruments different, and just loop them and kind of combine them as you went along, instead of just jamming it out in the studio or just taking a track and like playing it all the way through. It was a very different way to record an album, and the results are very, very astounding, very good. This album went gold. There were Talking Heads got inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2002. And this is a very fun album. It doesn't sound dated at all, even though one of the porters at the bar said it reminds him of like 80s music and stuff, but it is 80s music, but it doesn't have like a cheesy 80s like George Michael kind of, you know, like Cyndi Lauper 80s feel. Like this still sounds new and fresh to me. Like it's very funky, very fun to listen to. The production's, you know, seamless, very well polished album. I really enjoy it. I think it went gold. It wasn't on a bunch of critics you know, top 10 1980s album of the year lists and stuff like that. Pretty cool album. If you guys don't listen to Talking Heads, this is a great album to start off with. It's only their 4th studio album. Talking Heads, Remain the Light, released on Sire Records in 1980. Awesome album. I can't find anything really wrong with it.